Hey Peeps, I'm James Buckler of Engage Pixel, and when I'm not hanging around on rooftops with a bedsheet tied around my neck, I like to make video games. In this episode of my game Postmortem, I'm going to be talking about the engine I chose for Captain Kaon, which was Gamemaker Studio. I'm going to talk about all the different factors you need to think about when choosing a game engine, and how to make sure you're picking the right engine for your project. Choosing the right engine is not as simple as saying, hey look, Unity is free and you can do some cool stuff with it, because general purpose engines can be a little inefficient and unsuitable for your specific needs. Like commuting to work in a tank. Sure, you can cut through the traffic, but that thing's miles per gallon just going to eat your wallet. It's also not as simple as saying, I'm an amazing programmer, I'll make my own. You might very well be, but a custom engine is still something you need to think about and not just jump straight into. Stick around and I'll take you through all the facts you need to consider when choosing an engine for your project. Your engine is the core of your game. It's a collection of interconnected systems that everything else bolts onto. It's comprised of things like a renderer that draws everything on the screen, a memory management system that will load all your files into memory, a control input interface to connect it to the player, some physics to make things a little bit more real, an audio system for music and sound effects, and lots of other really fascinating things. Depending on your engine, it may also have some code for gameplay mechanics, but usually this is one of the things you have to add yourself. And that's a good thing, because it's your mechanics that separate your game from everybody else's. Engines can be broadly placed into three types. There's a custom proprietary engine that you make yourself, a genre-specific engine that is tailored to a specific type of game, and a general-purpose engine that tries to be a bit of everything. If you make your own engine, you can meet the specific needs of your game. There won't be any extraneous features taking up memory, and it will be more efficient. You'll have direct access to the codebase and total control to make any changes you need, which you don't generally get with an off-the-shelf solution. And of course, you don't have to fork out lots of money in licenses. Unity Pro, for instance, is $1,500 per person per year. If you have a team of a couple dozen people and you take 3 years, that's a lot of money. All of these reasons are why so many high-end games have their own engine. Of course, there's a lot of reasons not to make your own engine. It takes a lot of time and expertise, all of which costs money. A lot more money than an engine would cost you. That dev team of 2 dozen people would need another dozen just to make the engine and the tools that they need. That could easily cost 10 times the Unity Pro licenses. You'll struggle to get more than one programmer for the same cost as the licenses. And there's no guarantee that the engine will be as good. If you're working on your own as I am, then you really can't afford the time it takes to make an engine. Custom engines are also a lot less flexible. They are designed to be specific solutions, so won't have a lot of the one-size-fits-all general-purpose functionality of an off-the-shelf solution. If you need to do something else, it could mean going back and rewriting a lot of the code that forms the foundation of the engine because the system can't do what you need it to do. There have been many occasions when I've heard a programmer tell a designer their idea was impossible simply because the engine we were using wasn't designed to work in the way the designer needed it to. With a custom engine, you just don't have the flexibility. With an off-the-shelf engine like Unity, a lot of the work is already done for you. You just need to add the code for your gameplay mechanics, slap some artwork on it, and you can quickly arrive at a functioning prototype. It saves you time and money, which, as an indie, are your most valuable resources. With an off-the-shelf engine, you get something that will be kept up to date for you, which frees you up to do a lot of the cool creative stuff that goes into making a great game. Some engines are tailored to specific genres. If you want to make an RPG, then RPG Maker is great. It has all the systems that you need in place already. You just need to add some characters to the story, balance the skills and abilities to make things fair and fun, then slap some artwork on it, and you're done. Likewise, there are engines for visual novels like RenPy, where you can do the same thing, or if you want to make a point-and-click adventure, then you've got Adventure Game Studio. These engines are great if you want to make a specific type of game and only that type of game. The main problem is they tend to produce games that all look the same. There's an homogeneous mass of RPGs on Steam that are barely distinguishable from each other because they're all made in RPG Maker. They have the same art and gameplay mechanics. If you compare one screenshot to the other, they look like different levels from the same game. These engines are great if coding isn't in your skill set, but art and storytelling is. Just make sure you put a lot of effort into making games that stand out from the others visually. Try to avoid having another sword and shield hero walking around an identikit village trading the same weapons and potions for gold. Essentially, you need to put a lot more effort into thinking outside the box, because these kind of genre specific engines create very specific boxes to put you in. So what are the factors you should be thinking about when choosing an engine? It's easy to look at Unreal and go, oh my god, look at those amazing graphics, and then just use that, but you need to make sure you're picking the right engine for your project. Firstly, try the free version if there is one, and see how you get on with it. Different engines work in different ways, and the best way to find one that suits you is to give it a try. I did this with Captain Kaon, first making a prototype in Unity and then in Gamemaker. I also tried the And engine because I was originally planning on making a mobile game. The And engine is a code-based only engine. It doesn't have an IDE or any editors. It's also Android only, so in the end I didn't even make a prototype in it because learning my way around the code base took longer than making the other two prototypes put together. It was the Gamemaker prototype that both played better and was easier to develop, so that gave me my first big tick in the favour of Gamemaker. Secondly, you need to think about your budget. It's no good using a fancy engine if you can't afford the licenses for your team. If there are two engines that both do what you need, and one is half the price, then why would you buy the more expensive one? If you're living on a fixed amount of money and you have until it runs out to make your game, then you need to make sure you're not spending it all on tools you won't need. You won't leave yourself enough resources to make your game. Of course, there are a number of engines out there, like Unity for instance, that lets you use the base version for free and even lets you release a game and keep all of the money. This can make the issue of a budget seem a little irrelevant, but free things are usually limited in some way. At the time I started Captain Kaon, I was using the base version of Unity. I'd been considering forking out for the Pro version so I could get the export modules for mobile, but it would have cost me more than £1,000 and I didn't have a lot of savings to work with. When I took a look at Gamemaker, the Monster Collection was available half price, so it made a lot more financial sense to pick it up. Key to choosing your engine is to ensure that its capabilities meet your requirements. Put simply, don't use an engine that doesn't do what you need it to do. You should look at your game design and figure out what you need your engine to do so that you're not spending time and money on an engine that has limitations that prevent you from making the game you want to make. An engine like Unreal is best suited to action games, first or third person. You wouldn't make a visual novel with it. That's what Rempire's for. And although it can do an RTS, it probably can't handle a couple of thousand characters very well. For the original design of Captain Kaon, I needed an engine that handled 2D well, exported to mobile platforms, and could do networking natively. This is a short list of requirements, and there are plenty of engines that fitted them. But it's also worth noting that there are a lot of things missing from this list. I didn't need an engine that did fancy graphics or shaders, as I was aiming for an Amiga era pixel art style. I didn't need VR support because that wouldn't add anything to my gameplay experience. When all the factors were considered, it left me with a choice of Unity and Gamemaker. You should also look at the scripting language an engine uses, because not all are created equal. Some are easier to read, some are more powerful, and it's always better to go with one you already know. Take a look at Unity. It has a Java-based Unity script, it has C#, and it used to have Boo. These three languages are not equal. In fact, Boo is so little used it's been dropped a couple of years ago. But comparing C# and Unity scripts can seem like it's just a difference in syntax, but there's actually a lot more to it than that. Unfortunately, I would be here all day explaining the differences, so I'll just say that C# has explicit typing, type synonyms, for each loops, exception handling, and is just better. There are some other ways of scripting. Unreal, for instance, uses a visual node-based system. Gamemaker has a drag and drop interface to build code instead of typing it. This is a way of making scripting more accessible to beginners and works best for people who haven't learned to code yet. There are a couple of problems with it, or rather reasons I personally don't like them. Once you have a complicated script, which any decent sized game will have, then the node system can look like a giant spider's web, and the drag and drop it's really time consuming to write and edit. Good code is as easy to read as a page of a novel, and for me the nodes and drag and drop, they just aren't. Then you have the problem of visual scripts being converted into standard scripts. The game itself can't actually read all those interconnected nodes. The editor has to convert it into an actual code script before the game can run it. It may not easily convert into a fluid and efficient script that's as good as something you can do yourself. Sometimes it can create a code file that is an unreadable mess to the human eye. Most important though, if you learn to write code, you can move to different engines and you just have to learn the syntax. You have a useful skill. If you only know how to use those nodes, then you're stuck with that engine. These learner-friendly solutions are just costing you in the long run. For Captain Kaon, I skipped straight past the drag and drop parts of Gamemaker and just used the scripting language GML. Some of the objects I have in my game have more than 1,000 lines of script making them work. Had I done this in a drag and drop style, it would have been an unworkable mess. It's also a lot easier to export reusable code across to other projects when you can copy and paste. Next, we have the important issue of good tools. If you don't want to buy any extra software or employ a program to make them, then you need an engine that comes with good tools. Not every engine has an IDE, and some don't have anything for handling art or level creation. The AND engine, for instance, comes in the form of code libraries. There are no tools, and you have to use a third-party IDE. Good tools are an important factor when you create a game. Nowadays, there are enough good engines out there that you don't have to worry about getting a bad one. Even if you make your own engine, there are so many common code solutions out there that it's much harder to get it wrong than it was in the 90s. Game development now is much more focused on content creation, and that requires good tools. The built-in level editing tools of Gamemaker were a key reason why I used it for Captain Kaon. You can quickly and easily make 2D tile-based levels and get them up and running. I was able to make a simple level in Gamemaker that exactly matched the retro Amiga style I was trying to create, and I could do it a lot faster than I was able to do in Unity. Once you've chosen an engine, it's also generally good advice to stick with it. There are many games out there that have switched engine mid-development, and it generally doesn't work out well. You lose a lot of time converting everything across to the new engine, so unless you're gaining something more than a couple of fancy graphical effects, it's just not worth it. Having reached the end of the project, there's something I've learnt in hindsight that I didn't think about when I started out. Using Gamemaker has been great for making Captain Kaon, but it's not been so good for me personally. If Captain Kaon doesn't sell, then I've got to go and find a job. Spending 4 years making an entire game on your own can look great on your CV, but unfortunately making it in Gamemaker doesn't. Gamemaker doesn't have a professional reputation yet. There aren't exactly many professional teams out there using it to make games. Had I spent 4 years making a game in Unity, then I'd have fantastic in-depth knowledge of how Unity works, and that'd be great for getting a job. Future plans like this are also worth thinking about when you pick an engine. If you're making games to get a job at a company somewhere else, then pick an engine that they are likely to use, which is generally either Unreal or Unity. Having said that, I'm still going to use Gamemaker for my next project. In fact, I've already moved on to using Gamemaker version 2 for my next game. I'd like to switch to Unity, but I can't afford the time it takes to go back and relearn the engine or learn it to the level that I know Gamemaker. So I hope this has given you a little bit of insight into choosing an engine, or at least helped you realise that you should do some research and actually think about your decision. If you have any questions, then you can ask them below and I'll try and answer them as best as I can. If you've enjoyed this video, if you found it interesting, it would be great if you could give it a like. If you have any friends that you think might be interested, it would be awesome if you share it with them. If you'd like to support this channel and this video series, then pop over to Steam and pick up a copy of Captain Kaon. I hope you enjoy it. Until then, I'll be back with the next episode of my game Postmortem soon. I'll be talking about the first playable level milestone, so hit subscribe and follow my channel to see it. Until then, enjoy playing games and I'll see you next time. In this episode of my game Postmortem, I'm going to be talking about game engines, and there's a fucking car driving past. Is to ensure that it's fucking loud car. You need to add the code for your gameplay mechanics, and that car's too loud. Fuck you, car. Thank you very much. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, car. Off you go. That separates your game from somebody else's. And then a car went past. Fuck you, car.